Okay, hello everyone. My name is Elizabeth Lewis, and I'm part of the COFEM team as a wellness consultant. So welcome to this to our launch of the emotional first aid tip sheet. So we welcome you, and just to get us started, I can share a little bit brief information about COFEM itself. So COFEM, it stands for the Coalition of Feminists of Social Change. And it's an organization that's dedicated to advocacy and just collaboration, also collective care. And just it encompasses activists, practitioners, researchers, thought leaders, folks who are in academia as well. And we work across, yeah, different continents and countries, all with the same purpose to end violence against women and girls. So welcome again. I hope that you are a member. If you're not, I encourage you to join. And so as I introduce myself, I'll have also my colleagues introduce themselves as well. So if you all can just take a moment to do so and before I move forward.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. Hi, everyone. I'm Pupul Lama, and I'm the regional liaison for Asia Pacific region and also the research working group chair. And yeah, I'll hand it over to the members from Asia Pacific who were part of the working group and played a big contribution in the development of this EFA tip sheet.
Hello, good evening from Dhaka, Bangladesh. I am Shanur Akhtar Choudhury. I work with Save the Children International in Myanmar as Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Advisor, and I'm with the COFEM for quite a good number of years and, have been actively engaging with the Asia Pacific group as well as, different working groups members. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shanur. I'm Meena. I'm from India. I'm based out of Pondicherry, India. I live here. And I'm a gender security worker. I work on domestic violence, intimate partner violence, faced by queer persons and married women. So that is my work. I also work a little bit in defending democracy, civic space assistance, defending the postal ecology. So I work in a lot of these spaces, and I've been a part of COFEM for a couple of years as well. I think around the same time that Chano and I have been here, and I've worked on this tip sheet. Also worked on feminist fun games and some of those activities. Um, it's so good to see some new faces here. So happy to join. Please take a look at this, and we have a really nice session planned for you. So please take a look at the sheet afterwards as well and let us know what you think. Yeah, the link is in chat. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to introduce? I don't know. Pooja wanted to.
Pooja, do you want to introduce yourself? Pooja is our primary resource person along with Monira, who helped us develop this. Pooja, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Pooja. I'm based in Mumbai, India. I'm a mental health practitioner and I've also for many years worked on gender sexuality from a queer feminist lens. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity to contribute.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome again, everyone. So just want to start with a brief um, sort of intro as well to COFEMs. We have a wellness working group, so we also meet periodically. So if folks are interested, I can put my email in the chat, and if you're interested in either writing or developing a piece on whatever wellness or self-care looks like for you, we are welcoming folks to collaborate with us. As we get started, if folks in the audience, if you can at least put your name in the chat to identify yourself, like where you're from and any particular roles that you have. And then if you can think about a brief phrase or word that would describe your wellness or self-care routine or plan so far. And if any of my colleagues also want to participate, you can as well. I think for me, what comes to mind with my self-care is the word ambivalent is like, I know I should do it, but I just keep working, and then I know I should do it, and then I just keep working. So it's not in the best form right now of my usual routine just because of deadlines and also just feeling a little bit more stressed than usual. But if anyone else would like to introduce themselves and also describe what does their self-care or wellness looks like right now, feel free to share or put in the chat. So we'll take about a minute or two if anyone else wants to introduce themselves or share.
Hi everyone. Sorry, my camera is a little dirty. My name is Lucky Kobugabe, and I am the communications and advocacy lead for COFEM, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm really, really excited about this tip sheet and learning more about how to use it. And my self-care right now is, oh, well, I went for a Pilates class earlier today, so I'm feeling quite great and energetic. Yeah, so that's my thing.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And I know that someone introduced themselves in the chat, so folks can also be mindful of the chat as folks are introducing themselves. So once again, if anyone else would like to share, introduce themselves, and also share how their self-care is right now, feel free to do so. If not, I'll pass it along. Thank you, everyone, for your attention. Okay, so I think we're segueing to what is emotional first aid. So who would like to get us started and share some of the great work that you all been doing?
Yes, let me do it. So thanks, Elizabeth. And now I'd like to talk briefly about why COFEM felt the urgent need of developing a knowledge product on emotional first aid, or EFA. So emotional first aid is a feminist-centered practice designed to provide immediate trauma-informed support to individuals in distress, particularly survivors of gender-based violence. Rooted in feminist principles, EFA prioritizes dignity, agency, and equity. It equips practitioners, whether humanitarian workers, advocates, or community leaders, with tools to stabilize emotions, validate experiences of the survivors and themselves, and connect survivors to critical resources. But why EFA? Because GBV, or gender-based violence, is not just a physical violation. It's a systemic issue that inflicts deep psychological wounds, often compounded by societal stigma and power imbalances. Now, at COFEM, we wanted, through this tip sheet or through emotional first aid, we wanted to connect this to trauma, burnout, and collective care. So GBV survivors frequently endure trauma that manifests such as anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Feminist practitioners like us understand that trauma isn't just an individual burden. It's shaped by intersecting oppressions like patriarchy, class, racism, and poverty. So EFA responds to this by centering survivor agency. Like instead of imposing solutions, we ask, what do you need right now? So this empowers survivors to reclaim control. And then addressing immediate needs in crisis settings, for example, like displacement camps, EFA practitioners use grounding techniques, to help survivors to reconnect with the present. And uh, there are also like challenging systemic harm, like EFA isn't just about individual care, it's about recognizing how systems fail survivors to provide services. When we talk about burden, it's the cost of caring in a patriarchal system. So burnout is pervasive among feminist practitioners. Why? Because we operate in a system or in systems that undervalue women's care work and perpetuate cycle of violence. The emotional labor of supporting survivors where battling institutional inertia can lead to exhaustion, secondary trauma, and cynicism. So EFA mitigates this by prioritizing practitioner self-care, like the COFEM tip sheet urges us to practice reflexivity and set boundaries. For instance, journaling or peer debriefs help process vicarious trauma. And then rejecting savior complexes. This emotional first aid reminds us that we are not here to fix survivors, but to walk alongside them. This shifts the burden from individual heroism to collective responsibility. So how we look at the collective care from a feminist perspective. So feminism teaches us that liberation is collective. Emotional first aid thrives in communities that practice mutual care. COFEM's Nourishing Feminist Souls Toolkit, for example, encourages peer support networks by sharing strategies for grounding techniques or ethical referrals. And then advocacy for systemic change, like addressing underfunded medical health services or unsafe workplaces. But most importantly, joy as resistance, like integrating art, music, and communal meals into care practices to combat burnout. In conclusion, I'd like to say that developing this EFA is a very radical act and very radical move. How? This EFA is more than just a set of tools. It's a feminist praxis. By addressing trauma, preventing burnout, and fostering collective care, we challenge systems that commodify suffering and isolate caregivers. Let's close with a quote from the COFEM tip sheet. Healing isn't linear, but it's always relational. When we practice EFA, we don't just aid survivors, we build ecosystems of resilience where everyone's dignity is non-negotiable. Next, it's my honor to invite Pooja Nair. I mean, she has already introduced herself, but I would like to say a few more words about her. So with over a decade of experience expanding research, documentation, consultancy, and training, Pooja is now an independent psychotherapist and a key collaborator at the Mariwala Health Initiative. Her expertise in feminist approaches to trauma-informed care deeply informed her role as co-developer of the COFEM Emotional First Aid Tip Sheet. Pooja, would you share your reflections on shaping this critical resource, if I may request? Thank you.
And everyone at COFEM, again, for this opportunity to contribute to the tip sheet, the EFA tip sheet. So just a couple of things. One is that I'm so happy to be part of a feminist conversation on mental health, because we have to make that known. We as feminists have to talk about mental health. Mental health is too important to be left only to the experts. And we are also missing a large part of the puzzle if only, the so-called experts are talking about mental health. We are, as Shahanu said, discounting the role of structural inequality, of patriarchy, of violence on mental health. And there is no mental health work that can be done without bringing structure into the conversation, and thoroughly endorsing all the elements that Shahanud mentioned of care, of agency of the persons we are working with, and that all support should be directed towards empowerment and upholding agency and not of rescue. And it's also work of dignity, because when one is at the receiving end of oppression, what structures try to do the most is strip us of dignity in our lives, and working on restoring that dignity, working on upholding that personhood is the way mental health work should be done. So thank you very much, as I said earlier, for this opportunity. And I really, really hope that we continue to, like we do in many other spaces, butt in when we are unwelcome or uninvited, but still make sure that feminists are in mental health spaces and talking about gender inequality and its impact on mental health. I hope that continues into the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pooja, for such a powerful reflection. I'll take over from here to just walk you all through the EFA tip sheet today. It's a very thoughtful collaboration that took place, and it's designed to support feminist and humanitarian practitioners in offering trauma-informed, compassionate care to survivors of gender-based violence. So the first thing is to clarify the usability, and this tip sheet is a feminist-centered resource that's tailored for non-mental health professionals. Many of us who are community organizers, GBV responders, feminist activists, humanitarian workers, and researchers, and of course, peers. So it recognizes how EFA is already embedded into much of the work that we do, even though we wouldn't have the language or the structure or tools for it. And it offers practical, accessible guidance for offering empathetic, responsible support to women in all their diversities who are affected by gender-based violence. So EFA is not just about supporting others, but it's also about protecting ourselves from burnout, practicing ethical care, and fostering collective care. And this resource is grounded in real life, real world examples, and is designed to be used in a range of contexts. So the EFA tip sheet, it mainly focuses on supporting adults, but we encourage practitioners working with minors to refer to complementary child safeguarding and trauma-informed resources. So the tip sheet is divided in three parts. So the first part is where it introduces the context, linking GBV with mental health, and defining what EFA is and why it matters. Part two provides step-by-step guidance on how to offer EFA in practice. And then part three focuses on honing skills over time with practical tools and examples to help you apply these concepts in real life situations. So the tip sheet is grounded on feminist principles that shape how we offer care and foster a supportive and inclusive environment. And there are some principles that we refer to in this tip sheet. So some of these are like practicing reflexivity, where you're continuously evaluating your own biases and assumptions. Second is about upholding self-determination, where survivors lead the process and they control their decisions. And we are not there to rescue or take over. So there's emphasis on survivors' agency, empowerment, and autonomy. Then third is about maintaining confidentiality in terms of building the trust through safety, and then being non-judgmental in terms of offering validation but not evaluations. And it's also very important that we address power dynamics, where we recognize and equalize those power imbalances wherever it's possible while we are providing EFA support. And then it comes to contributing to social justice, where we situate distress in systemic oppression and commit to structural change towards dismantling oppressive structures. Lastly, it's to celebrate diversity, where we acknowledge and honor inclusion across diverse identities, backgrounds, and experiences. And we foreground consent, where every step of emotional support requires explicit permission, respecting individuals' rights to accept or decline assistance. So these principles don't just guide how we support others, but they also shape how we show up as feminist practitioners who are providing emotional first aid. So some of the key principles that we touch upon in this tip sheet are, for example, active listening, where you're fully hearing someone without interrupting or jumping in with solutions. Then there is about power of silence, where you give those intentional pauses and give space for the survivor to process, articulate, and reflect on their experiences, emotions, and thoughts. Then there's also about attending behaviors. You learn more about nonverbal communication, different strategies to create safety in the environment. And then there are these parallel conversations that often happen when you're confronted by accounts of trauma, where you notice and you try to manage your internal dialogue or the internal thought that is also going through while trying to stay present. So the emphasis is more on focusing on the present and also having those parallel conversations. Then we also touch upon listening and reflecting to emotions, setting boundaries, knowing our limits, when there is a role confusion or where you feel emotionally exhausted, and then coming to some responsible skills around making reference, knowing when emotional support exceeds the scope of EFA, and when it's time to refer to someone who's a specialist or a professional. Some of the other skills that we also touch upon are grounding techniques, some self-care and reflexivity exercises, and also being grounded on reflection and knowing your positionality to offer ethical care. So we hope that this tip sheet feels like a companion, something you can return to, adapt from, and use as a stepping stone in deepening your feminist emotional care practice. And with this, I'd like to invite Meena to share a bit about how we can apply emotional first aid in practice. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gopal. And you had some people who joined after that. So please take a look at the chat. And Lucky and Gopal have been sharing the tip sheet. So take a look at that. And I'll share a few examples. And there are a lot of examples in the tip sheet as well. Please take a look at them. But I'll share a few examples of how we can use this, right? And what you can do with emotional first aid when you're on the field. And again, as everybody said, this was meant for for humanitarian practitioners, feminist practitioners working in all sorts of settings, in crisis settings, in displacement settings, where you are there to do work of a certain sort. You are not a trained mental health professional. You're there to do something else. However, as part of your work, either due to something you've done or more likely as a systemic response, there is a person with emotional distress and they come to you for support. And how do you respond to that? Going beyond that, where I mentioned something could happen because of you, that's also possible. As a researcher, you're doing something, and as part of your interaction, someone gets distressed. You should be able to respond to that. So this is where the piece is situated. When you're not a trained mental health professional, but you're working in a field where there is a lot of distress in general, and where you also carry the potential to bring out someone's distress, the idea is that we have something to fall back on. We have a way of beginning to address it, to just not address it, to respond to it. Exactly how physical first aid works, right? It's not a health solution. It's not something. It's not a treatment, but you offer first aid. So an emotional version of that something that you can do to manage someone's distress in that moment, at that point. And then there are different ways in which you can take it forward after that. Um, but yeah, so that's the setting. And I'll give you a few examples. And if there are questions in the chat, if there are people, you can, this is a listening circle, so you can also like share some examples, some situations that you've come across. And if we have time, we can, think through that. For example, the first one is, and I wanted to start with something like this, where it has to do with something a practitioner or researcher has done themselves, because this, I think, is one of the most uncomfortable things to think about. And in feminist circles, it's very, very important to have uncomfortable conversations, to sit with thoughts where there's a lot of discomfort. So say you're a researcher, you've gone to work with you're working on land rights and you're working with the community and you are in someone's house talking to them about the legal situation going on in their town and about their right to land and whatever they're doing with the legal system. It's a different conversation, right? You are having that conversation in somebody's house, but as you ask them, and say there's a woman who's responding to you, you're talking to them, and as she starts responding, you start noticing that the man in the house is walking around and he is not letting her be. And when he steps out, she immediately switches and she starts talking to you about domestic violence that she's facing. You are there, you are a researcher and you're there talking about, a land rights issue, and that is what you're doing. But how are you doing it? You are doing it by being in a very open conversation with her. You have sort of created that space for her. You've built that trust and you've made it possible for her to talk to you. And you wanted to hear about something else. You wanted to hear about something else, and she decides to open up. This is a very important thing that's happening because, as you will see, there's this concept of first disclosure, which is where somebody talks about a pretty intense experience that's happened in their life. The first person they talk to, the way that person responds is very important. And in these settings, when you are asking people questions, there is a chance that you might be the first person someone's disclosing a traumatic incident or a situation that's going on in their life. You might be the first person they're opening up to. And it's very important that you're responsible in that space. So in that case, we have in this tip sheet, you become the first responder, right? You're there. First thing first, be aware of your positionality, understand why this could have happened and where you are a land rights researcher, you're here, you're not necessarily trained in mental health, but someone is opening up to you. And so the husband is out and the woman is opening up. First thing, ensure that this is a safe space to talk. If you can, ask her if she's because she started opening up already, and it's a sign that perhaps she feels safe once the husband left. Just check that this is a safe setting for her to open up, for her to talk to you, and reorient the conversation. You will most likely have to park your land rights conversation, right? Be aware that you are at the end a researcher, and if she is talking to you, understand whether she thinks that maybe you can offer a solution, get her out of it, or is she just opening up? Whatever it is, be aware of what your position there is and of your limitations. What you can best do is listen, actively listen. We have a lot on attending behavior, go through that in the tip sheet. To attend to the person, the best thing you can do at that point is attend to this person, be there for them. And as they talk to you, I stay with them. And towards the end, if you can stay with them and help them work through it, think of your intentions as primary intention minimizing this person's distress. And you are most likely to do it very well through just listening really well. Listen, help them sort through whatever they're talking about. And if you feel a bit more skilled, if you feel a bit more empowered to do this kind of work, you could also stay with them and remind them of their agency. There are a lot of phrases that are there in the tip sheet that you can take a look at. They've reached out to you, which is a big step. They already trust you. All of these are really valuable things. And this is a person that wants to get out of the situation I'm not saying get out of the house, but wants to get out of the situation enough to trust a stranger with this information. So value their expertise, affirm their agency, remind them of their agency, thank them for sharing all of this with you, and talk to them about what they would like to see for themselves and how they see themselves getting there. As Pooja mentioned, it's a lot of it comes down to self-determination and agency, especially in these settings, because you are not a mental health professional. You are perhaps not even a domestic violence professional, and you are there. So you work with what you have. Um, they help them minimize distress if possible, reaffirm their agency. And at the end, if they're okay with it, you could offer to check in with them again. If they don't wish for that, you don't have to do that. Offer to check in with them again. You could also offer to refer them to certain services. So this is a very important component. Referrals. It's best when you go into this kind of work that you have a list of referrals and you have a list to fall back on. So if someone with a certain who's facing a certain form of violence or who's caught in a legal issue reaches out, you have a service that you can refer them to. So that's one of the last things you can do. So this is in a research setting, right? Like where you've gone there and in your interaction, something has come up. Apart from that, there are lots of settings. Say you're a field worker or a community worker, and you are working in a particular community, and as part of your work, you are working on community health access. But someone comes up to you and they start sharing a workplace issue. Again, what you can do, be aware of your position, of the power differential, sit with them, take them to a space that is safe, ask them where they would like to go. Again, being collaborative in this kind of setting is extremely helpful because you are in someone's community. They are likely to know what a safe space is, and they are very likely to know what actually would make them feel safe. So lead the conversation, but help them take you there. Once you reach the space, listen to them, and again, ask them where they would like for this to go, and stay with them. And you, I think Lucky was sharing this parallel conversation of how to solve this person's problem. That's not really what this is about, because put a different way, it's not even a person asking you to solve their problem. Someone is just trusting you with something, and it's on you to be there with them as they're trusting you with it. And that is where it is. Beyond that, based on what the person tells you, you can take it somewhere. You can take them somewhere with you. So it's like a collaborative process of asking them what they would like to do about it, where they would like to go, and if you have resources to offer, referrals to offer, help them with it. And if you can, check in with them a few times afterwards if they're okay with it. And that follow through helps a lot, but be very aware of your limitations and limitations both in terms of skill, time, and also in terms of your goal. Because if you're attached to an organization, you need to think through the ethics of offering follow through, and also be mindful of not following up with this person long term, because this is meant to be emotional first aid, right? It's immediate support. It's not treatment. So that's these are a couple of examples that I want to think through with you. But in your work, if you come across a lot of these situations, and I think all of us do, someone in another circle, I think, mentioned that people come and if they directly ask you, you are there offering emotional support, and if they ask you for financial support, what do you do? You are there offering material support, and someone's asking you for legal support. What do you do? So these are the things that we navigate, and one of the most important things you can do as practitioners and researchers is to first be able to anticipate these needs as much as you can. Go into it a little. If you understand the context of the situation, and ideally you understand the context as much to the best of your ability before you enter, right? So from there, anticipate some of these needs. Be a bit prepared with what you can offer people. So you're also able to be very clear if you can't offer certain forms of support. If someone in an educational setting comes to you for counseling, you tell them that very clearly at the beginning that you're not a counselor, but you are there and you can support them emotionally if they want to think through something with you. So yeah, so these are some of the ways in which you can use the slip sheet. The slip sheet also has a lot of techniques, and I would strongly recommend that all of you go through the techniques. A lot of them, the grounding techniques, solar. There's a lot of that there, because this will come in handy if you are in a setting. And emotional first aid, the way we've conceptualized it, it's not just for people who come and directly ask you for support. Sometimes you see a person in distress and you realize something is going on, and you might be the person you might be the only person in that setting who's seeing this. In that case, you can sit with them and help them ground themselves. There are a few things that you might be able to at least try, even if you don't succeed. So if you end up being one of the only persons in that space witnessing something, it's helpful to know these techniques so you can go. and you have something to offer in form of response. So yeah, so that these are the examples. And if any of you have any questions, leave them in chat. We can like try responding in chat as well. Yeah, yeah. I think I'm seeing a lot of responses because Eunice, Lucky, I think I'm seeing all the responses, and this is really good to know. Eunice, too. Yeah, I mean, understanding limitations is really primary, and one thing I've not touched upon, but I think Pupul did, is about self-care and limitations as practitioners avoiding burnout. That's there in the tip sheet. Please take a look. And there are lots of other COFEM resources on that as well. Okay. Thanks a lot. I'd like to pass it on to Elizabeth after this.
Thank you so much, Mina. It definitely ties into what I want to share now. I don't know if folks know, but I'm a psychologist based in the United States, and I'm Haitian American. So for me, when I think about what has been shared so far, there aren't enough mental health providers, whether it's psychologists, social workers. Even in the United States, only 4% of psychologists are Black. At least the Black population is at least 13%. So there isn't enough, and even at the current place that I work at a community health center, we have an 8 month to 1 year waiting list. So I see that this tip sheet is incredibly important. And it also reminds me that part of when we think about self-care or wellness, we have to think about collective ways that we're able to do that. And that includes sort of thinking about creatively, whether that's, as has been shared before, creating some type of directory or tip sheet or list of places that we're aware of. I know for me personally, if I'm referring someone to a place, that mean I have had a conversation with the person because we can't assume that all resources or references are also equitable or have feminist principles. So even though it's a little bit of an extra sort of step to identify that the resources are in alignment of feminist values, but it can definitely help to be a proactive approach and to reduce any particular further harm or re-traumatization of either clients or folks that you work with as well. I know for me, because I'm from the island of Haiti, and I think there are about maybe for a population of over 13 million people, maybe 50 to 100 psychologists and 13 psychiatrists. So we did a lot of mental health literacy programs where I, as a clinician, work with other folks in the community, and on a yearly basis, we would provide something similar to this tip sheet where we would train teachers, religious leaders, students over a week, and we would talk to them about mental health. What does that look like in the particular culture? And also what types of resources that make sense for them. Not like, oh, we're going to go to a clinic, but if there isn't a mental health provider, what are some other ways that folks could? We identified some landscapes in terms of like where parks are located. We identify folks who were interested in using the radio or telecommunications or WhatsApp to share some monthly sort of tips on how to take care of your self-care. There were different sort of groups, even though it wasn't a formal form of mental health or wellness resources, but it worked for that community. So in doing that, those trainings in Haiti, it really inspires me, and it even inspires me here in the United States to, even thinking outside of the box about what types of resources could be helpful, especially when trying to strengthen our healthcare, our mental health, and then also our self-care given to limited sort of resources or systems that are not engaging in feminist practices as well. So when it comes to collective care, I think thinking about what does that mean for you? Is that at the local level, peers, friends? Is it that you're joining a particular group? I know for me, I'm particularly interested in hiking, so I usually try to find an all women's group that enjoys hiking. So that's what we do. So it definitely so I would encourage folks to think about what is collective care and how does that tie into your feminist values. And it doesn't have to be a formal thing, but it's what works for you. And then also with the work that you do, whether you're a researcher or you're into advocacy or you're a practitioner, um, how does that align with the work that you do, but also recognizing, as folks have shared, your limitations? And if you have limitations, who can you reach out to in terms of formal or informal settings as well? So I'll stop there in terms of, I think it definitely matters when we think about self-care and wellness that it's not just within us, but also within the community and our whole collectivism as well. So I'll stop there and then I'll open it up for questions or remarks that folks have based upon what we've shared before we pass it along to Lucky. So any questions or experiences that folks want to share about their own journey or about thoughts about this tip sheet?
There's a question on the chat already. Oh, so maybe I can read it for the team that worked on the tip sheet. So someone is asking, how do we respond when a survivor shares their experience and actively asks, can you help me? And if we do not have enough information on hand about the resources in that area, what would the best approach be in that case?
I can take this, but if Pooja wants to jump in at the end, please feel free to do so. Because this is pretty common in my line of work, and how I've done this, and I've had situations where someone's asked for support, and I've not been equipped at that point to offer. Um, so So the first thing I would say is when they're sharing their experience and then they actively ask, right? There's a lot that is done as they're sharing the experience. So as they're sharing the experience, even if you know that you're not equipped to help them with the situation, you are helping them at that point by listening to them. So I think even if you are feeling incompetent, if you're feeling worried, I think it's important to park that at that point and be present with them as they share. And at the end, so when they do ask you if you can help them, I think it's important to ask exactly what help they need, because if it's a survivor of if it's a sexual violence survivor who's asking you for support, can you help me? Ask them what kind of support they're looking for. Are they looking for support with like the police system? Are they looking for legal support? Are they looking for emotional support, physical support? To be clear, ask them for that. And if you think you can, and in this case, I uh, ask them what kind of support, and then let them know that you'll get back to them with whatever you find. Okay, let them know that I'd like to support you. I'm here for you. But I don't have the answer to this just yet. I'll find out and I'll get back to you. And try to give a clear timeline. It depends on the setting as well. Like if you are somebody who goes every week to that place, or if this is a space where it's your office and if someone comes every week, you know when you're meeting that person next. So in that case, you already have a clear date. Otherwise, set a clear date with them. Let them know by next week I will get back to you with an answer, with some form of support. So that is what I would do. And then once you leave that space, you can go and find out information. I know when we say first aid, what we think of, and in most cases, it's immediately what you offer. But immediately what you're offering is your presence. And beyond that, if there is a form of support that they require that you can offer, but you just don't have the resources right then, defer it a bit depending on the situation, and try to come up with uh, a resource that you can offer them. Like sort of stay in the picture as well. Don't just give them the phone number of a psychologist and leave. It's helpful to have a bit of follow through if you are the person that they first trusted. And yeah, I think there's a way to do this which sort of seems intuitive when you're in the situation, right? Like you wouldn't feel like just giving a number and leaving. So it does become intuitive, I think, when you're working. Um, but yeah, does this answer it, Aradhana? And Pooja, if you feel the need to jump in, correct, change, please feel free.
Just two additions. May I? Okay. Um, so the first thing is that as feminist researchers or feminist, interventionists, social workers, there's also a bit of extra we do in preparation before we get to the field. And I think that preparation is also because of our privilege of being able to exit that scene of violence or difficulty that, the person we are working with is in. So once we, are able to reflect a little bit on our privilege, we know that some amount of homework, perhaps even if it is just one SOS number, phone number or contact, it's good to be prepared because we know we are entering the field and interacting with someone vulnerable. So I think it should become part of our preparation even before we go to the field. It should be, in fact, part of maybe protocol or best practices of ethical research with vulnerable communities. That's one. And the second one is, if there is a contract for getting back to this person, it's important to check the safety of callback. So are we able to call back in ways that will not render them even more vulnerable? What if that 15-20 minute interaction is all we have? We might need to scribble a number and give it at that moment. If we have to call back, we may have to have, for example, pacts like, if I call you back and someone else picks up the phone, what should I say, who I am, which does not make you unsafe. And, it's also coming from my experience of working with vulnerable populations, due to gender, sexuality, etc. So the callback may not be a callback without a pact and an understanding may not be safe for the person because they are at immediate risk from their families who have access to phones, families who will not allow privacy. So just to, Meena, adding to that callback thing, if we are putting safety checks in place for the person before we call back. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the responses. I don't know if there is any other question or thoughts or reflections before we do the closing. I'll just give us a minute. I see there's a lot of thank yous and this was helpful. Yeah, Eunice had a tip that you can also establish communication codes with a person for safety. So that's quite helpful as well. Yeah, please feel free to add any questions or thoughts that you might have on the chat. And yeah, for now, I'll just say thank you so much to everyone who made the time for the launch. Thank you so much to the Asia Pacific team for all the amazing work you've put in this tip sheet. And it's honestly truly, truly exciting for me to see it come to life and to see it on the website. And I am sure that this is going to be so helpful for so many people. So this webinar has been recorded and we will be sharing this on our YouTube and we'll share the link on the website on the same page as well. And I would also like to say that on top of the tip sheet, there are so many resources within, and I think that they're quite helpful as well. So please feel free to visit our website and see all those resources within the tip sheet. I'd also like to say that if you're not yet a COFEM member, you can join us. I have shared a link or links on the chat on how you can join our COFEM community. You can follow us on LinkedIn. I think a lot of us do. And if you have any questions or thoughts or reflections after this call about the tip sheet, or you would like to have more conversations, please email us at cofem.hq@gmail.com. So I have shared that. Otherwise, thank you so much. And we are really excited to see the tip sheet grow. I would like to say that we have so many other knowledge products on the line, which is amazing. So we will have the wellness brief coming up as well with Elizabeth. Yay. We also have an accountability brief coming up next month, I think. So we have quite a lot going on. And we have amazing working groups. So if you're part of COFEM and you're not yet in a working group, please let us know through the email or through the WhatsApp group, and we can assign you to any of the working groups that will be helpful for you. And you can use these working groups as a space to work on knowledge products. It could be briefs, it could be blogs, it could be anything that's useful for you, or even just conversations that are useful. So please reach out. And yeah, thank you so much to everyone. Please let me know if you have any questions or thoughts. Otherwise, this was really great, and I hope you have a lovely weekend of caring for yourselves very deeply. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lucky. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.